Well, I want to talk about the Marys of the Bible, but first, I want to tell you a story most people do not know. It takes me 5 minutes to tell the story. And it sets a tone about a woman named Mary, and her name was Mary Ann Patton. Mary Ann Patton. She was married at age 16 to her husband, who was named Joshua, who was 25, and he worked on a clipper ship. He sailed from did that ever since he was even a teenager. And at the time, in the 1850s, they would take a ship all the way from New York and have to go all the way down to the end of South America and come up all the way to San Francisco as they were sending. Because in the 1850s, what was hot in San Francisco and around? Gold. And they had all these tools and everything in the ship, so it was very profitable. But they needed people to be able to get their products to them. So they had a standard rate if you could take a sailing ship, or a clipper as they called it. They would pay you $3,000, which paid your crew and paid you, and it was a lot of money back in the 1850s. But it typically took 140, 150 days. It's a long time. But then the men started finding faster ways to do it and someone actually got it down to almost 100 days. A little over 100 days, like 100 days and 8 hours, something like that. So her husband, 3 years when she was 19 years old and pregnant, he was offered the job to take his first ship there by himself. So he did. So he hired what he thought was a good co-captain, forget what they call them. But then he said he could make it in 100 days. And they said, if you make it in 100 days or less, we'll pay you the $3,000 plus a $1,000 bonus if you can get it there. So he was all excited, and he got his ship, took his wife, and they started from New York with $350,000 worth of equipment. And they sailed. And about 8 days out, his captain, his co-captain, or his assistant, started creating problems with the men. And found out he couldn't be trusted. He started stealing things on the ship, and he had to lock him up. And so he had no one to help him. So for 8 days, Joshua ran the ship 24/7, sailing. These are sailing ships. And so he had to work everything with just a minor crew. To where he finally got sick. Got so sick he passed out and didn't even know where he was. They called it some type of sickness that came at the time. They had no one, so they decided maybe they wanted to let the guy out of the brig and let him continue to sail, because they were just hitting South America, at the top of South America. At which point they decided no. His wife said no. Here, this 19-year-old girl said, no, I'll sail the ship. This Mary Ann Patton. So she had never sailed a ship before. She had listened to everything her husband had said. She had watched everything he had done. She had assisted him. And so the major story was that she did bring the ship in at 137 days. She's the first woman that ever did that. Okay? First woman that had ever accomplished it. Matter of fact, her name's up there, and a hospital is named after her. Various things are named after her because of what she was able to accomplish. When she got there, she was 8 months pregnant. Can you imagine sailing? Okay. She ran into 50-foot waves and 100-mile-an-hour winds when she got to the bottom of South America. And she had to actually dodge icebergs that were in the water. And the men said, we need to turn back. And she said, no, this is how you get around them. So she was able to maneuver. All this thing accomplished by this woman that everyone thought the ship must be sunk. So when she got there, she was not a quitter. That's an impressive Mary story to me. that she set her mind to it and she made it. And they were so impressed with her that they gave her the $1,000 each. So let's talk about the Marys of the Bible, because there are some listed. So, like whoever wants to raise their hand first, give me a Mary and tell me a little something about the Mary you know, because there are quite a few. Is anybody here want to tell me about a Mary? Nobody wants to speak first? John, I saw your hand first, then we'll go to William. Tell us, what's her name?
I'll do Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. Okay.
She, interestingly enough, she was named for the town she came from,
Magdala. Mm-hmm.
And she was actually the first one who saw Christ after he was resurrected.
Yes.
And she was also one of the three women at the cross, at the crucifixion. And there is some speculation, I remember reading that, well, she really was a woman of the night, but supposedly she wasn't at all. In fact, there was some pope that had to apologize and say, well, we called her that, but there's no evidence that she was. And she was also known as a woman that had a lot of influence because she was pretty wealthy. And she was worked with Christ a long period of time. And there was one other thing. We don't know much about this, but she had some kind of spirit problems because Christ had to literally remove 7 devils from her. We don't know why, but just that's
demons.
What happened.
7 demons.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing? And yet she became a follower of Christ. Anything else? Anybody else have anything on Mary Magdalene?
Was she the one that used her hair after she washed his feet and dried with her hair?
No.
It wasn't her.
Mary Ann Patton.
Aha. But Lillian brings up a very good point that I want to touch on here too, is how many times was Jesus Christ's feet washed and his head anointed with nard oil? Once? You sure? How about twice? They're okay. They're in the back row. I expected that from you.
And I can't tell you the references.
Okay, that's fine. Because I want people to study that, because there were 2 instances of that. Mm-hmm. Which will bring another question up later that I'd like you to ponder. Okay? He gave us Mary Magdalene. That's one. One down. Many to go. Somebody?
Magdalene was among a couple of other women financially supported.
Yes. Yes. So obviously she was single and had money, and if she was able to support, she would be able to support the nard that was bought, the perfume. How much did how much was that perfume worth? Spiken? Huh? A year's salary. A year's salary. So can you imagine today? That's some serious money. So you would have had to have money. Now we know Mary of Bethany is named as one, right? Does anybody want to give us another Mary? No, Bill. Oh, go Bill then I'll come back. Yeah, Bill.
One that surprised me was Miriam.
Miriam. Yes.
Because when you look up the word Mary, it references Miriam in the Old Testament, according to Nave's Topical Bible.
Sister of Moses.
And Exodus 15, 20, and 21, Miriam, the prophetess of the sister of Aaron. Interestingly, the word, this is surprising to me. I would think that if you were to say Mary, what would be the meaning of the word Mary? I would say, oh, a very loving, kind, gentle, immortal person. But what does it actually mean? It means bitterness, rebellion, bitter, rebellious, bitter, rebel. Those are words that Mary, I'm sorry about that, but that's what it says.
You just insulted my wife. And the woman sitting beside you. And
Just the fact.
Maria, just a fact.
But I read that it was because it meant that because of being a slave in Egypt.
I did hear that too. I did read something about that too.
But it also said Mary meant beloved.
Beloved, yes. Uh-huh.
Beloved.
Huh?
And it was goodness.
Yeah, one Greek and one Hebrew perhaps, in that
So
meaning.
you're the love here.
You know the Greek, don't you? Did you or your wife knows the Greek? Yeah, you both do, don't you? Yeah. So I better not venture off so I don't look in front of you.
They said the water, the bitter water, when they were in the wilderness, was called Mara,
Mara.
which is a
Derivative of that and so forth.
that
Like
goes
that.
along with Bill's
Yes.
definition of the-
Yes.
Right here. You got it.
I've seen that.
Strong's number 40,
I've seen that. I'm trying to
So we have Mary Magdalene, Miriam, which I'm glad you brought up. I thought nobody would bring that up, but you did. So that's two. We got any other Marys? Jonathan? Oh,
Sister of Jesus' mother.
Mary. Okay, read it.
It says Mary, she was the sister of Jesus' mother, the wife of Clopas.
Clopas.
At this time, she also stand at the cross. She
Mm-hmm.
was one of the Marys.
That's not right.
Okay, tell us what's not right about that.
Okay, in John 19, it says Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary's sister, Mary Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. There's three Marys and a sister. If you go to Matthew, I forgot, something another,
Yeah,
verse 45.
you talking Luke 24? No.
It says, when he was crucified, the verse 40 mentions three women. It doesn't mention Mary, the mother of Jesus,
Right.
but it mentions Mary of Cleophas, Mary Magdalene, and Salome. So there were four women there, Mary, Salome, Mary, and Mary.
Okay, so what are you saying? So what is your... Yes?
Mentioned four women.
Mentions four women.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one was a sister.
Mary of Clopas is mentioned in John 19 and verse 25.
Yes.
How is she mentioned there? She's the wife of Clopas. Okay? So that's...
Strong follower.
And also Luke 24 and verse
Spelling,
18.
I don't think the spelling's right.
Oh, there are two different spellings of it. Same person, two different... Yes. Yes. I had to look at that too. William.
Matthew 27:56, you have Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's sons.
Yeah, now who is... Okay, you're just bringing that up. Mother of James and Joseph, or Joseph. Who is that?
I had a thought, because I thought it was really weird that Mary would have a sister Mary. But I have a friend who has a sister, who has a daughter, Mary. And these two boys, James and Joseph, it's oftentimes a sibling will name their children after their uncles. Just a thought.
Okay. There are only so many balloons in this world. And they are slowly disappearing. Okay?
So that Mary could have been Jesus' sister Mary.
Okay. I like where you're going, but let's consider this. Nobody brought up the mother of Jesus yet, have they? They did?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
You did, but you didn't mention about it.
Everybody was talking.
Okay. So you want to bring that up because I think this ties to that. What can you tell me about Mary, the mother of Jesus?
She was only mentioned a few times in the Bible, well, when the angel came to her and said that she was going to conceive,
Gabriel. Mm-hmm.
and at
Okay, let me ask you this. How many children did she have?
She had at least 7. She had 4 sons, plus Jesus.
At least 7.
And at least 2 daughters. At
Yes.
least 2 daughters.
Yes, we know there are 2 daughters. At least 2 because he said his sisters. So we know that. So she had 7. she had 4 boys besides Jesus. What was their names?
James, Joseph, Judas, and what's the other one?
Judas
Simon?
and Simon. But what are the first 2 names? James and Joseph. Who did it say was there at the cross?
Mary.
Mary, mother of James and Joseph. Now, what's the chance of there being 2 mothers that both named their sons in that same way? Because we know that those were the names. So, my belief is that that's Mary. That's the mother there. Because why wouldn't she be there? Okay?
Because it said the sword would also pierce her soul.
Yes.
Simeon said.
True. True. So you brought up Mary, mother of Jesus. Nobody knows how old she was when she got married. How old do you think she was?
14 or 16, between 14 and 16. That was
Okay. I read a Hebraic book the other night, and it talked about preparing for marriage, and most girls that were betrothed at that time could be betrothed at 12 years of age, and that they became engaged at 12, and it gave them 12 months for her husband to prepare the house for them, and at that time then they were married. So she could have been as young as 12 or 13, which is mind-boggling with us today. Many theologians think she was 15, 16 because they knew Joseph was older. He was already a craftsman, which would have put him in his 20s. Sounds kind of funny for a 20-something-year-old guy to marry a 12 or 13-year-old girl, doesn't it?
But back then, wasn't it, you went from a child to an adult?
That's right.
Teenager, that's
That's right.
later,
Yes,
right?
very much so.
Child to
Very
adult,
much so.
They didn't have this teenage thing that we do.
Well, didn't the Jews figure that 12 years old was the age of accountability?
That's right. It was the age of accountability. So even the young men, I mean, they only went to school, if there was a school, till they were 12. And then they were to take up their father's skill or be in the marketplace somewhere. Okay, so we've got Mary, mother of Jesus. We've got Mary Magdalene. We've got Miriam.
Mary Bethany.
Mary of Bethany. Okay, tell me about Mary of Bethany. Do you mind?
Her sister's name was Martha.
Her sister's name was what? Martha. Martha. Okay.
Lazarus.
Another name was
And
Lazarus.
she also,
Okay.
she also wiped Jesus' feet with the hair.
Why was that looked down upon so much? I mean, because they did. Because he said, "Look what she did." And on. Okay. Anybody else have anything?
The perfume was expensive, that's what they were.
A year's out, yes. And he said, well, you look who Judas was, because he was trying to fill the coffers with money he had stolen.
You're not supposed to have their hair down.
Ah, a woman, you were supposed to have your hair up or in something. A modest woman, ones that didn't. Prostitutes and various slaves, girls could have their hair done, but that wasn't supposed to be done. And to use that, and also a single woman was not supposed to touch a man's feet. And even a single man, just like when Jesus Christ would touch, set out and heal, he really wasn't, according to their rules and standard, wasn't supposed to touch a single woman. That's why it was, even when the woman touched his garment, that was like, And that's why she didn't come out and do, I did it, because that's something you didn't do. Okay? So, we're going through this fairly quickly. So, do we have any others?
Did that happen at the time when Simon gave that banquet?
Yes?
And wasn't that 6 days before Christ's crucifixion?
They believe it was.
Well, when you time that, does it, this is an off-the-wall question, but does that put Christ's triumphal entry into Jerusalem as the same 4 days that the lamb would have been brought into the houses for
Yes.
Passover.
Just like Passover, 4 days before. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, now that can pretty much be proven. The 10th day of the month as when he made his entrance. And you remember what happened when he came into that city. They recognized him as,
The son of David
yes, the son of David,
and the king.
and he was the Lamb of God. So it's very symbolic how that all came to be. Yes, sir.
Just an aside question, isn't that where the Protestants get the Palm Sunday?
Oh, yes.
When they spread
Yes.
the palm tree, the palms.
Yes.
That's how they get that?
But it wasn't Sunday.
I know,
But it was Palm.
but, I mean, that's where they get it.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yes, because it fits in their
Yeah.
story and so forth.
This may be a
Yes.
little bit, well, not controversial, but I did a study on Palm Sunday, and what I learned going into secular history, going back to when Uzziah prophesied that this was going to happen. Was it Uzziah, one of the prophets, prophesied, behold, your king coming?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you go back into the history, history showed that it was. It doesn't really have anything to do with the Protestant. There are certain things that may be a fact, but the Protestant jump on it.
Yeah.
But the history, and anybody could search this, showed that it was actually on a Sunday when they lay the palm, their leaves, and they say, Hosanna. I did study that, that's what I got out of it, actually.
Yes.
That's what I got out of it.
Okay. Okay. Any other Marys? Because I still got, yeah, wait, I got to go. I had you once. Oh, yes. Sir.
Mary of Rome, we know anything about her?
We do know a lot about it.
About Mary of Rome, or well, she ministered to them.
Romans 16:16. You want to read that for us, Dale? Romans 16:16. It says it, Mary of Rome.
Much labor, it was like much support.
Oh, here.
Romans, what was that?
16:6.
16:6.
And he was reading a whole bunch of other people at the time. He
Yep.
says, greet Mary, who bestowed much labor on us.
Okay. They say that's not much. Wouldn't you like that to be said about you? I mean, most people would just say hello to this person, this. But Mary did this work. You know, he recognized her for her work. It's not something that much work. I just thought that was a powerful statement that was made that some people might just overlook. And tell you the truth, before this study, I overlooked it. And then I began to realize that's pretty powerful for him to separate, and if you look at all those names, separate her and commend her for what she did.
Do you think that she could possibly be Mary, the mother of John Mark?
Ah, now I was hoping somebody would bring that up.
I thought that
The
was,
mother of John Mark.
that's in Acts 12.
Yes.
So Peter came after he was released from prison, and they came to that house.
Yeah, where the girl, what's her name, Rhoda? She was like there, and she said, there's a ghost. Or Peter's out there, and they said, oh, no, it can't be, or whatever. And he knocked on the door and had to come back. If I remember the story, just recalling off the top of my head. So who was John Mark? Mary was the mother of John Mark. Who was John Mark?
Mark was the one who traveled with Paul and Barnabas.
And what happened to him?
He kicked off and didn't make Paul very happy,
Right.
so he quit. He
He-
quit, but he came back.
He quit, but he came back.
And didn't Paul say that Mark had become valuable to him and he was to bring the
Very much so.
scrolls or
Yes.
whatever?
So John Mark, Mary had a son named John Mark. That is the Mark of the Bible. He was a writer, and he wrote Peter's story, actually by all accounts. He wrote Peter's story for him, because they even wonder if Peter could even read or write. It's been debatable why. So John Mark followed them and went there with them, Barnabas and Paul, on the travels. What is interesting is most theologians, and I've seen points of it, that John Mark was the nephew of Barnabas, which would have made Mary his sister. Mary would have been Barnabas' sister. Now, what other people have brought, I'm just bringing this out because I can't prove any of this. Okay, I'm just saying you don't have to go and read it, but it gives you some. Is that you remember when Jesus Christ was taken that night, and then there was a young man who ran naked.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be John Mark. So he was supposedly a follower of Jesus Christ even back then. So his mother was named Mary. I didn't think you guys were going to get that one, but you did. Okay, is there any other?
So are they the same or not?
So we've covered how many? 6. 6, unless you want to count Mary, mother of James and Joseph, which I think we've seen. Ampy, did you have a 7th? Don't mean to put you on the spot. I love putting you on the spot.
I don't know, Mary of Cleopas?
Yes, that's her, the woman that's husband, wife of Cleopas, which I want you to study and bring everything there. Okay,
There's Mary, the mother of James.
Mary, the mother of,
James,
James and
Luke 24:10.
Mary, mother.
So would that have been James, the son of Alphaeus?
that's what's debatable. That's why I brought this up. Do we know? Absolutely. No. That's why we do Bible study. It's not the answers you know. Sometimes it's the answers you don't know, that we don't know for sure, that you can help more people with. Because that's why you're here, to help other people when they have questions. Frank, you have a Mary.
No, I have a question about James and John.
Okay.
Who are they?
James and John.
Are they not Jesus' cousins?
Yes.
Through whom?
Salome.
And Salome?
Zebedee. Zebedee and Salome, or Salome. It's pronounced 2 different ways, but how would you pronounce it in Greek?
Which word?
Salome?
Salome's close.
Okay. I got it somewhat right. Okay.
So she wasn't referred to as Mary at all?
No, Salome, no. She would have been, they think, the sister to Mary. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to quote, in Mary, the wife of Cleophas.
Yes.
Matthew 27 is the mother of James and Joseph, referred later in Mark to as James the Less and Joseph, which is another word for Joseph.
Yeah.
So it's not
James the Less wouldn't have been,
for the
right,
common names,
for James.
Jesus and
Yeah.
4 brothers.
So could it have been?
2 different Marys. It might be.
That's a lot of Marys.
Yeah.
Okay? And I guess that's what I want to end with is and I don't want to sow discord among the brethren. Okay? That evaluation I had last week would be brought up real quick. Okay, but I'd like you to answer just a couple of questions for me. And I want to set the stage. Okay, the relationship between Jesus, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha was what? Very close, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And that when Mary anointed him, Mary of Bethany, right? That's who we're talking about. Mary of Bethany. She anointed him, and they had a little fit about it. He said, no, she knew exactly why she was anointing him, didn't she? For his death, for his burial, right? This woman was close. You remember when Lazarus died? She's the one that came out. You remember when he was preaching in the house and Martha goes, all right, get over here, sister, and help me work. Right, Jeannie? Your sisters aren't here, so you may have to tell somebody else not. And so what did he tell her? No, she's chosen the best thing. Say, you need to come and sit and listen. So that was a very, very close relationship. How far was Bethany from Jerusalem?
30 miles.
Hmm? Within 5 miles, they say, from walking. Okay? Pretty close. About a 2-hour walk. Yes. So this was very close. Okay? Everybody agrees. Mary of Bethany was very, very close to Jesus Christ. Then let me ask you this question. Where in the world was she then? Why was she not at the cross? Why is she not mentioned any place when he's being killed, or anything like that? Or at the cross, at the resurrection? Why is she not mentioned in any of that? It doesn't make sense, does it? Wouldn't she have been there? Unless, okay, I'm giving you this as a theory because that's the way I read it from an author. At the end of the book, he makes, and I can't remember, I read the book 15 years ago. He makes the point that Mary of Bethany would have been there, but she's not there. And she should have been there. Is it possible, as he said, it is very possible, that Mary Magdalene was Mary of Bethany? Because Mary Magdalene was there. And that Mary would have gotten her name Magdalene from where she previously lived before she came to Bethany to live back with her brothers and sisters. Is there any evidence of that? No. No. But it brings the question, where was Mary of Bethany?
One thing that might support, two things that might support that.
Okay?
Is that in the John 11 account, I put down this note, in verse 32, she came to where Jesus was, saw him, fell down at his feet. Lord, if thou had been here, that action and emotion, her psyche, led to Jesus weeping.
Yes, yes.
Okay? He was so moved by the whole circumstance.
Even though he knew he was going to resurrect.
Of course, the facts didn't.
But he was moved by her.
The movement, the passion outweighed the facts.
Yes. Yes.
But what you're saying there with the Mary Magdalene possibility also makes sense that she loves him so. I gave a sermon about this one time where I mentioned about women that wanted to marry their husbands, and how I mentioned Mary Magdalene is one of the examples of women. We are okay. Let me stay with that. That she loved Jesus so much. She waited there. She wanted to be at the tomb to help him.
Yep.
And when she talked to the gardener, if you know where he is, tell me so I can go to him and help him.
Right.
She loves him.
Yep. Yes.
So when he shows up, he doesn't reveal himself to her at first. And she thinks he's the gardener.
Right.
Right? So this is filled with emotion. I mean, it's just powerful. And so then he says, Mary.
And then she.
That cuts through all of the dimensions.
Lifts the veil off.
It does. Yeah, it does. It does. It does.
So that might support that idea.
It's a theory. It's not mine, but I've read it, and I think it's, that was just one of my questions. So, the reason I gave this Bible study is during the next 30 days, you will be reading about the crucifixion. We'll read it from the pulpit. You'll read it at home and so forth like this. I want you to read with the Marys in mind. And then, if you have other thoughts, please email me, because I want to hear them. Because the more we study something, the more things become clear. And it's our job, because we are supposed to be students of the Bible, That's why we have Bible studies that revolve just this, not everything else. Okay, you're done. Let's eat.